I think that we're all way too self-aware. And I want to stress right off the bat here, I don't mean individually. I don't think we're individually all too self-aware, right? Like, for example, I like to think of myself as somebody who at least tries to be relatively self-aware. I can't say I am self-aware because that would kind of, make me seem like I'm not self-aware, but I try to be self-aware, right? And I think that's fine. I think all of us do that to an extent, right? Like in social situations, you might know like, oh, I really want to go in there and start talking about this niche book that I just read because it'll make me seem super cool and I get to talk about it. But if I do that, then it won't come off as self-aware. That's good. That's good, right? Because we're probably all saving a lot of friends by acting like that, right? But I think like collectively, the internet has made us far too self-aware. I touched on this a little bit a little while ago, but what made me really think about it is this episode I did, I want to say it was a little over a week ago now. It might be under a week ago, last week sometime, right? I did this episode on why like the 2020s as a decade don't really feel like a decade, right? I think this is something we can all relate to. Do a little brief recap for those of you that might not have seen it. I was just kind of saying like, I think when you go back to the 80s, everybody, like, it seemed like that was more of like a vibe, like there's a vibe to the 80s and people were making music about the 80s. Like everything was very of its time, whereas now it doesn't really feel like that anymore, right? Threw out a couple things. If you want to see the full thing, of course, go watch the other episode. But one of the things I said that was specifically relevant to this conversation is I was like, maybe people weren't as aware as I'm thinking. Like maybe in the 80s, it felt just like it feels now, and, only in hindsight are our parents' generation, or maybe, if some of you are watching this are older and lived through the 80s, maybe now, looking back, going, wow, the 80s were a time to behold, right? And I thought it was really interesting, the responses to that, because some people were saying, yeah, they were so aware in the 80s, other people were going like, I lived through X decade. It just certainly didn't feel, it felt just like right now, looking back, I see, sort of the uniqueness of it, but it didn't feel that way, right? This made me realize something about the modern day. Did people in the 80s know they were in the 80s? I have no idea. Like that, I think that's just an impossible question for me to answer. I'll call up one of my parents and ask them later, because I think I probably should have just done that before I recorded this. I think it would have given me an answer to come here for all of you with. But that's besides the point right now, right? I think the fact that I can even think of this question is, I believe, or the fact that all of us can think of this question and like relate to it, right? Not only is it something that like, I'm sitting in this cube thinking about it for 20 minutes, something I spit out randomly. It's not something like that. This is something that like everybody I know has a take on, of like, does it feel like the 2020s? How is the unique feel of our time developing? Like the fact that we're all thinking about that, whether people felt like that back then or not, I don't know, but I think it makes me think we're way too self-aware right now. And I'm gonna kind of throw out a really simple explanation for this that I believe. It's very likely wrong. I would love to hear your thoughts, of course, as well. Always check those out. But I do think it's just the internet. Like, I think it's the internet, and I'll kind of open that up to say, like, technology in general, right? Because the way that, like, culture and feelings and tastes and identity and stories especially, the way that all these things get passed down has changed dramatically because of the internet. I don't think, I guess I could say I kind of know that, like, if you go back to the year 1920 and you want to hear about the year 1910, you're going to have one of two ways to do that. You're either going to, ask somebody, what was it like 10 years ago? Or you are going to read about it, right? Both those things are still a choice right now. I could go ask people about, the 80s or the 90s and figure that out because I wasn't around back then. But we don't do that, do we? Like, maybe conversations will come up, especially with friends of mine that are a little older than me, about those things. If you were born a couple years before me, you remember the 90s pretty well. So conversations like that have certainly come up between me and my friends, but for the most part, the way I know about the 90s is because I'm consuming a ton of media of the 90s. I listen to music from the 90s. I watch movies from the 90s. And most importantly, I have a ton of videos from the 90s. Like, I could go watch videos of this. You know, back in the day, when people were talking about, I don't know, a great tragedy that happens, very different than now, where I had videos of tragedies played for me in school. And I'm not saying one of these things is better or worse than the other, but one definitely causes a great deal of self-awareness, because when you can go look at the people in the past and think about how they are, like, that makes you think about you right now, because the assumption there, you know, when you're living life in 1910, I would be willing to guess you just kind of like are like, it's 1910, like I'm just going through the motions, working, you know, I'm trying to make the day's ends meet. Many of these things remain true today. A lot of people are looking like that. But when you open a video from the 90s, or when you throw on your favorite classic movie from the 90s, the assumption there, along with doing that, is that one day, the 2020s, will be consumed in the exact same way. Someday people will be throwing on Brat the same way that they throw on, oh man, now I'm totally gonna mess up thinking of a relevant pop album from the 90s. Guys, what's the name of Nirvana's second album? Wait, no, I got this. No, this is bad. The baby on the cover, guys. There's Bleach is their first album. In Utero's their last album. Guys, what's the baby album by Nirvana? No, this is bad. This is really bad. There's no way I don't know it. No, like, Lithium's on it. Polly's on it. Guys, like, I know this. I swear I know this album. Now it seems like I'm a fake fan. Oh my, guys. Is it just called Nirvana? No, it's not just called Nirvana. There's the Nevermind by Nirvana. Nevermind. What was I even talking about? I don't know. See, but this is the interesting thing about this, right? Even in this moment, right? This is a relatively calm format for doing YouTube. Like, I'm kind of just talking, shooting shit with you guys here every day, right? Subscribe, by the way, if you aren't already, because I am here every day. Somebody commented I need to do that more, so I'm trying to do that more. Like, tell you guys to subscribe is what they commented I should do that more. This is a chill format, so it's kind of whatever if I do that. You know, I as a individual don't actually mind too much. I think it's nice, if anything. I appreciate when content creators I watch leave in moments like that. But the fact is, when I do an action like that, I have to consider not only how will this be perceived when it goes up tomorrow morning for you all, but like, how will this be perceived in a week when somebody watches a new video and maybe ends up clicking on this one? Let's say a year from now, because I do plan on still be doing this a year from now at the moment. In a year, when somebody's watching the newest video and maybe this one for some odd reason gets recommended to them, they're gonna see that. Like, I gotta think about this moment in the context of this will be viewed later on. And I think we all, in one way or another, have to think of our modern day circumstances in the context of these will be viewed later on. Because, I mean, why won't they be? Honestly, it's kind of hard to make a broad brush statement, right? Because all of us live very different lives, but most of our, like, lives will be viewed later on. 100%. Because, I mean, we look back to the 90s and that's being viewed. We're seeing the 90s at this point. We know what it looks like. We can describe it. We can describe the fashion they wore. I mean, the fact that we can do a very, like, we were talking about retro, contemporary retro the other day, like the style of, like, dressing retro in the modern day. The fact that, like, that can be a thing tells us all we need to know. Because, yes, could you in the 90s be like, I want to dress like somebody from the 70s? Yeah, especially because they have a lot of media from the 70s. It's probably a pretty bad example. Let's go back to, like, again, let's go back to the 1910s, right? I'm sitting in guy in 1910 and I'm like, man, I really want to bust out some of that post-Civil War 1880s apparel right now. Could I do it? I would go on a limb and say yes. I don't really know enough about history to say for sure. Like, I don't think I'm the guy to answer this question. I would assume, though, that a lot of the clothes are still around. Maybe some of it's still being worn. Clothes definitely lasted a lot longer back then. But for the most part, even if I did want to do it, I would have to research. I'd have to ask people, what were you wearing? I would have to probably use some primary sources of books. I would probably have to look at some photos. Like I'd have to do things like that. Whereas in the modern day, it can happen fairly naturally. Like, people watch Mean Girls and they go, man, those low-rise jeans are awesome. Low-rise jeans are back now. Like, it's as simple as that nowadays, where people can just look at something and go, man, I want to replicate that. One of my favorite movies is Yi, and from the year 2000. And the dad in the movie wears he wears these pleated pants with this certain watch and this certain shirt with a cardigan over it. And after watching that movie, I went out and bought the cardigan. It's technically, I guess, 2000 style. I mean, definitely a little bit more timeless than a low-rise jean. But the point still stands. I was able to, in a very natural way, dig up the past and wear it. That also needs to be assumed that that's going to happen with us. We're so aware of everything. And then on top of that, what I believe to be the cherry on the cake. Is that the term? The icing on the cake? The cherry on top? The cherry on the ice cream? Cherry on the icing. What I believe to be the final piece of this is that we're also seeing each other in real time all day. This is something I touched on like a very early Paint and Talk. Like, this is super early on. I think it was like maybe in the 20s, where I was talking about how when you are scrolling and you see a guy acting a certain way, and then you open up the comments, see everybody responding to that, you now understand you are seeing like everybody's behavior be focus tested in real time. That's probably not good. I don't think that's how that's supposed to happen. Because this has happened to me a couple times, where it's like a guy does a joke and everybody's like, in the comments talking about like, this guy sucks, or like, that's not funny, or like, was it worth it for the 300 likes, lol, bro? And I have no choice but to be sitting there like, damn, like, I did that joke with my friends last night, and now I gotta just think about the fact that, like, everybody would have thought that was terrible. If I was hanging out with this comment section, would not have flown. Like, that's a real thought that I have to have now, in opposed to just being like, okay, like, did a joke with my friends, don't even remember. I mean, at this point, I also don't even remember what the joke was, but the point still stands. Like, we're all self-aware because of that. That's what I mean when I say we're too self-aware. I don't think it's good for a collective of people, like the entire internet especially, but everybody's on the internet, so just like everybody, to be able to look at their own actions and go, what does everybody think about these right now in the moment? And there's too much meta commentary. Like this goes back to the discourse thing. There's discourse on everything, about everything now. And all of this has led to us being way too self-aware, and I just don't know. I don't know what even it looks like. I don't know what the effects are. I just know I don't like that. So let me know what you think of it. This is the painting. Don't know how it's going to look on camera. I can see a little bit more of the nuances in it myself of how the blue contrasts with the black. As somebody that loves comic books, I really like this. It kind of reminds me of like the Max, an old comic book character. And like I can actually really get down with this. I don't know how people are going to like it though, to be honest. I don't know if you guys will have any, I don't know, like this might just be more like I like it because I'm so into comic books and this reminds me of that. It's also not too deconstructed. It's more of a drawing. So I don't think this is great. I like it, but I don't think it's great. The colors work okay, like right there. It's all right. This is an all right one. I'm going to call it like a fairly mid one. Definitely though, since I'm going to assume you guys probably can't see the colors on the camera up here too well. So definitely go follow the Instagram. End of this week, a post will be up with this in better lighting, making sure I'm going to really put in the time and, color grade these so you guys can actually see them how I see them in real life. So definitely follow the Instagram to see that. And until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dice. This has been Paint and Talk episode 146. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.